Welcome back, guys. Thanks for joining me in the studio again today. I want to talk to you about line art when you're doing line and color style of illustrations. Now, whether it's illustrations, comic books, whatever, comic art, that kind of thing, what I'm specifically talking about is the type of artwork where you have lines and you have colors. So basically, you're using line work to distinguish the different parts of the drawing and separate one element from the other, versus a more painterly style where you're just using values and tones and shading and highlights and all that good stuff to separate. Think about it like a painting. A painting really doesn't have a whole lot of line in it, but comic book is full of lines. It kind of thrives on the line art, and if you do your line art correctly, your image can stand alone just as line work. So there's a lot of ways to do line art. There's a lot of theories on how to do line art for different types of medium, different types of actual drawing styles and stuff like that. I'm going to go over today some of the tools and techniques that I use in Clip Studio Paint to do my line art. Using different types of tools within the program, you can actually create a whole lot of different effects to really achieve the type of line art that you like in your drawings, whether it's more sketcherly style, like a pencil. Think about a pencil and the graphite and the graphic nature of that, and kind of the textured and toned nature of a pencil that's maybe more scratchy or sketchy. Or the other side of things, you can use brushes and inks like you would find if you're doing like a traditional inking drawing for comic books and stuff like that. You can emulate most of that in Clip Studio Paint. We're going to go over a few different brushes. I'm working on this illustration today that I just started a couple days ago. I actually just started it as an anatomy exercise, just sketching a little bit on my iPad. So let's jump into the canvas and get right to this. I've actually gone through several sketching layers already. I had my initial sketch, which was this, which I brought in and accidentally colored over part of it. Brought that in from my iPad. I was sketching in Art Studio Pro, and then I started kind of cleaning up things, cleaning up the anatomy, that kind of stuff. Put a little bit of a block in behind it just to check it out for form and shape and all that good stuff. And then I've started working in the details, going through one little layer at a time here. I've got it narrowed down to what is going to be my final line art, and I'm trying to organize this best I can so that I don't trip myself up in the actual lining process. So I think I've got my opacities, details, all that stuff to the point where I can tell what's going on maybe. I'm going to put in a new layer here just to play on and kind of show you my setup for line art. I have 3 different tools that I use for doing my line work. My pencil tool, which is this basic guy right here. I have pretty basic settings. It came straight out of the pencil sub palette or sub tool that was default. I messed with a few things, not a whole lot. It looks and emulates a pencil really well. I could actually do some shading with it if I needed to, like this. And if I need to lower the opacity, if I don't want full juice coming through, I can lower the opacity, and then I can work in some value shading and stuff like that, like you would see with a real pencil. And so this is my sketching brush. I use this for sketching. It just has that loose and kind of textured feel to it that I like with a sketching brush. Reminds me of working with a regular traditional pencil. I like working digitally more than anything else. I do still pencil draw occasionally, but I don't finish pieces with pencil anymore. I just sketch for the fun in my pad. So lowering and raising the opacity can give you different effects unless you just want to lay down full juice color. I've got my eraser set up as a soft eraser. It's just basically the default soft eraser, nothing crazy going on there. All the settings are pretty much how they were at default. I might have adjusted stuff here and there, but I don't remember anything major I did to that. So my eraser's already set up, and I can come in here, and this is my sketch. So this is the process I actually use for sketching in the program and working my way through these different lines to where I get to the point of finished detail. So I've got this detail layer, it's on top of the other one, working in the armor. Below that, I've got the like underneath clothing, and then below that, I actually have the underneath form. So I build it out in layers. I have to visualize things. This is just how I visualize. I'll build things out. Form first, clothing, and then accoutrements, armor, and overlay, and stuff like that. So that's how I start my work. I can actually lower that a little bit. And I use all my pencil for that. I use my pencil for that whole process there. And once I've gotten my pencil work all worked in, I have 2 different pens, and it really depends on how I want to work or what look I want to have. The first pen I use kind of moderately is the G pen. And the G pen is actually a default pen with Clip Studio. And I don't think I did anything to this other than maybe taper the stroke down a lot more. I left all the basic default settings, but this is a really clean and crisp like inking pen for, I would say, manga or comic style artwork. Okay, so it has a lot of smooth taper, smooth brush, smooth edge. Everything is smooth and crisp and clean. It's a very digital pen, I guess you could say. Like, it can be a very bold stroke, it can be a very dark stroke, very structured and rigid stroke. Not structured and rigid, but more like really well defined. There's no subtlety in the stroke in this. It's really well defined. So if you want to define your line art with something bold and really crisp and like truly identifiable as line work, this is the pen for you. This is a really great pen for that. For, I would say it's your manga pen, your manga and comic book or comic arts type of pen. What I've done is I've taken the G pen and I created my own pen out of it. And I did adjust some of the settings so far as the gap. I widened it a little bit. Texture, I don't have any texture to it, but I did widen the gap, and I made sure I had a circle brush tip, and I've messed around with some of the thicknesses and stuff like that. It just gives me a less clean feeling. I didn't do a whole lot to it. You know, everything is almost virtually identical to the G pen, but I did do a little bit, mainly widening the gap and stuff like that. There's no secondary stroke or anything on it. There's no watercolor edge, and the correction for stabilization and stuff, I don't remember if these are close to the factory settings or not, honestly, because I went in here and played around with this thing a lot for a while until I got it to act and behave how I wanted it to. And so if you look at the stroke, it kind of emulates the pencil, but the taper is much more attractive. Okay, so that's, to me, it's more attractive taper than the G pen is. It's like a mixture of the G pen and the pencil. Beautiful, attractive, so you can do wispy, light, crisp lines like this, and you can get hammer in there and get some thick lines out of the thing too. So I did one setting I did draw back, and I want to draw your attention to is up here under brush size. Go into this, your pen pressure settings. All right, so under your brush size dynamics, I made sure my minimum value was all the way down to 0 under pen pressure, and I got rid of the tilt so that when I make a stroke, I can go really super light, wispy thin, tiny little line, and then as I increase pressure steadily, it gets bigger and all the way to max value. So that's what I'm going to be doing all my lines with today. All right, let's just go ahead and do the part I don't want to do first, because I like to run from my eyeballs. And I'm going to do this on a couple layers because I actually end up doing like an overlayer, underlayer, overlayer, underlayer, you know, just separating different parts of the image as I'm lining it. Then I'll go back and erase what I don't need from whatever layer is below the other. Alright, this is total cheat mode, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and then I'm going to do an edit, paste, edit, transform, flip it horizontally. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and cheat mode on this dude, because I just ain't got time for drawing that eyeball. Let's make sure that looks okay. This is just a guide. It's kind of a cheat mode, but it's also kind of not. Alright, everything looks good. Everything looks good. We're going with it. I'm going to square the canvas back up, come back out here, and now I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to kind of just cheat. I might erase some of this. And do we have it lined up? I think that's a better lineup. Alright, now I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to kind of redraw the eyebrow just so there's a little bit of variability. And honestly, none of this is actually going to be seen right here, but it really doesn't matter right now. Just doing this. Add a little bit more character to the eyelashes, kind of separate them a little bit one from the other. Give them a little bit of difference. You don't want things to be too 100% symmetrical. That's why I don't like drawing faces with symmetry on, because it's just too stale. It looks stale. It looks structured and fake. And now that we've got our kind of structure of our eye down, this is where I'm going to do the pupils. And I'm going to do those separately. Now my Wacom is getting a little old and I can tell it's starting to lose pixels. It's starting to, you know, move on me a little bit, that kind of thing. The lag is getting, right there, see, the lag's getting worse. Alright, I'm gonna add a new layer here because we've got some hair that's going to go over the face, so let's just go right in here and delineate where the bangs are at. Bangs are cool, everybody likes bangs. Maybe, I don't know, 80s called, they want their bangs back. Gonna have a little more structure to this hair than I normally may do, because what I'm going for is kind of a samurai helmet look. You don't want to get too many lines going in your hair. You get too many lines going and it just kind of fills everything in and makes it feel too busy. This is where I do a lot of transitions, where I end up with a lot of transitions between elements, or overlaps between elements. It's more like overlaps. I will do multiple layers before I actually finish my lineup. So see, we've got a lot of overlap here, and then I'm gonna have more down here where this Hanya mask is. So let me just do the underlying portion first. To me, that's easier. Draw what's underneath, and draw what's on top of it, and erase as you go. So I'll have worked in all these details, the underlying details here, before I start putting stuff over top of it. So whenever I get to erasing what's over top, it'll be a little more believable. And keep these as loose and light as I can when it comes to the hair. The hair is actually, for me, the hardest part to line, so I like to do that first. Alright, that looks good. Kind of. I don't know. Probably end up redoing it. Don't mind a little bit of a thicker outline on the outside of the hair because it kind of gives you that shape and volume more clearly defined. And we got a little bit of weight to the hair here, so you know, it's kind of like our head's tilted, so you've got more weight over here than here. Excellent. Alright, we got the face lined in. Now let's come in here and we're gonna, you could leave these, I suppose, the eyelashes going through the hair, and I might, let's just leave a little bit of a hint because it's kind of cool. But you don't want to blast it all the way through. Some people do in their art, they'll blast it right through it. I don't mind a little overlapping in my lines, a little scratchiness to them. To me, that's just my personal preference and style. Some people like it to be really super crisp and clean and like perfect and structured and everything, but I like a little bit of wildness sometimes in the lines. That's good. We're off to a good start. We've got the main shape of the hair down how I wanted it, the head and all that stuff, and like this flow of the earlobes here, for lack of a better word. This kind of thing right here is a little bit much when it comes to getting away with stuff. Like, I don't like that kind of thing. It just didn't work. So let's go ahead and erase that. The artifacts are, you can get away with a little bit, but if you have too many, it becomes blatantly obvious and just too messy. I mean, there is such a thing as too messy. So that's basically how I outline right there. That is it. That is as complicated as I get. She's kind of got a little snarky smile going there, Got our main structure down. I don't think I need really any more lines in the face. It's going to be kind of a softer face. Elegant. Now, the detailing in all of this, because this is going to get crazy. Clothing. We got all kinds of stuff here. Let's just work on it. Half of pulling a good line, much like if you're tattooing or something like that, half of pulling a good line is really just setting yourself up to a good stroke on the canvas, regardless of the shape or orientation of whatever. It's just getting yourself in a position on your canvas to where you can make a really good stroke with your hand and with your arm, using the elbow to do that. And sometimes it's just about position, the position of your canvas, or the position of your, whether you're flipped or not. I'll flip horizontally a lot for pulling some lines. And the size of your canvas too, like how zoomed in you are, can really help you pull a cleaner line, or an uglier line in some cases, versus another orientation. So something to consider when you're actually moving around your canvas is zoom it in, zoom it out. Get yourself in a position to where you can make the clean lines, especially on a swooping and flowing or straightish type of thing, where you may need to pull a really long curved line like that. If you're zoomed way out, you can do it, but you're not going to be as precise. You're not going to be as accurate. You're not going to be as accurate to where you want it to be. But if you're zoomed way in, you've got a lot of canvas you've got to cover to try to make that line clean. So finding a happy medium is important. So watch, let's give an example here. You know what, we have this ridge here in the armor, so I'm going to do some strokey lines here. If you're very precise, you can actually pick back up where you left off with that stroke line. So you can do like that. You can do multiple strokes and work the line in like this, or you can try to get it all in one swoop. Like, wow, we got that edge right there pretty well swooped in. Alright, I can come back out here and drop that down like that. Now, coming to this side, I might actually flip the canvas back, and it's going to be much easier for me to not only do this ridge line here. Oop, kind of doubled it up a little bit, but it's okay. Oh, now see, it's starting to get sloppy. Some people may be able to just really smoothly pull a line, and you can put some smoothing into your actual, you can turn on a certain amount of smoothing in the actual tool itself, but to me, I feel like I lose a lot of organic flow when I do that. I lose a lot of that organic attractiveness of just doing lines naturally. And let's let that fade out just a hair. Whoop. There we go. There we are. Nailed it. Now this one, oof, got it. Got to clean that end up, but we got it. We got the main shape going. Nailed it again. All right. Cracking on. Alright, so let's go in here and cover something a little bit more flowy, less structured than the armor, and let's talk about doing some folds and some clothing. Clothing to me can get away with being a little bit more loose, I guess you could say, when it comes to the scratchiness of the line art, because there's a lot of movement in clothing. There's a lot of folds and all that good stuff. This part of the kimono going over the thigh here, and clothing follows the body, so you can also, when it comes to clothing, sketching, that specifically clothings, you can also leave a lot implied as well, because there's a lot of render and stuff like that comes with when you're doing folds and everything. When you're doing the folds and the rendering, your render is actually going to tell a lot of that story, so you can leave a little bit of it implied, more than you might think. And variation in the line width is going to give you a lot more visual interest to the clothing than something like when it comes to armor. Really letting things fade out and scratch out. This is why I draw my structures underneath, because it just helps me to actually see what's going on. There's the knee. Nailed it first time. Yes. I don't have to do that line again. I'm really excited about that. And the calf right there. So we've got our main identifying features going on here. Put a little bit more shading in there. Okay, let's go with throwing this in here, because we've got the leg going on top of the kimono a little bit right there. So we got a multi-layered thing going, because it's going to come out underneath here. And this is going to be kind of rigid there. There we go. Nailed it. Yes. All right. It makes me happy when it works out quickly. I might come in here and give a little bit of hash marks under these really dark places where there's a lot of ambient occlusion. I like to do that. And this is the seam, or the edging, I guess you could say, of the kimono. Starting to lay it in there like we know what we're doing. It's kind of a hard transition here because it's a weird shape too. It's not a traditional kimono shape. It's not just a straight kimono shape. It's actually split up the side, and a lot of it's going to be covered by this armor over here. So it's a good start. It's a good start. All right, so this isn't, this is just the way I do things. This may not be the 100% best way in the entire world to do line art, depending on who you're talking to, what they're doing. Everybody's kind of got a different flavor. This is just how I do it. These are the tools I use in Clip Studio, and I found them to work really well. I may adjust them over time as I need to, depending on what style or type of artwork I'm doing. So that's it. Let's get out of the canvas now. Flip this back, and I'm going to carry on with working on this piece. I got a lot of detail to go here, so I'm going to be a few hours into this. All right, I hope you learned something today. I thank you for joining me again. There's a whole lot you can do with lines. There's no real one right way to do it. It really kind of just depends on what look you're going for. And Clip Studio Paint has a lot of the tools, basically everything you'd need as a digital artist to create just about any type of line you may actually want. So I hope you learned something today. Let me know with a like, subscribe, comment, share down below. Whether you're scanning in your line art and going from there with your painting, or you're actually redrawing all of your final lines here on the computer, there's really no wrong way to do it. It really boils down to what you prefer as an artist for your style. All right, thank y'all for joining me again. Get out there, be blessed, and create something beautiful today.